Donald Trump is headed back to the White House, which means it's time once again for Senate Democrats to shake the dust off their book of tricks to give any of his cabinet and judicial nominees absolute hell. They figure this is their time to shine by bullying an unassuming civilian on live TV.
Do you agree that it is possible for men to both be friends with some women and treat other women badly?
But when it was Pete Hegseth's turn to be questioned at his hearing before his confirmation vote for Secretary of Defense, the Democrats had a harder time shaking him.
Yes, are you willing to support our veterans organizations that will help our veterans get every damn thing that they deserve because they signed on the dotted line to keep us safe, just like
Pete knew all of this was coming. There'd been a lot of media coverage on his past trials with alcoholism and his encounters with women. Legacy media has also, so far, painted Hegseth as some sort of white nationalist. The evidence, apparently, is two of his tattoos, which experts in white nationalism and the far right identified pretty quickly as being symbols that people on the far right, including neo-Nazi groups, use. The evidence? Two of his tattoos, which experts in white nationalism apparently say are tied to neo-Nazis. In reality, one of these tattoos says in Latin, "God wills it." The other is just a Jerusalem cross. Funny enough, the same cross appeared on the front of the program at the funeral of President Jimmy Carter this past week. Hegseth knows how to keep his composure from serving in the Army National Guard in Iraq and Guantanamo Bay. He also spent the past decade as a Fox News personality. Hegseth knows how to hold himself while on camera. He didn't break a sweat in response to Democratic interrogation. Still, a lot of the questions were unfair. Oh, quick note, you'll see in every clip Pete's wife Jennifer sat directly behind him. As senators questioned Hegseth about his past marital impropriety, they had to stare her in the face as well. It seems like a strategic move. So take Senator Tim Kaine. Yes, that guy, Hillary Clinton's running mate, who accused Hegseth of being a serial abuser of women.
You had just fathered a child by a woman who would later become your third wife, correct?
Senator, I was falsely charged, fully investigated, and completely cleared.
I seem to remember that Tim Kaine had no issue with the scandals of the Clintons. Hegseth came prepared, though.
I have failed in things in my life, and thankfully I'm redeemed by my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
Well, if the Democrats can't bring Hegseth down on extramarital affairs, maybe they can get him with alcohol.
December of 2014 at the CVA Christmas party at the Grand Hyatt at Washington, D.C., you were noticeably intoxicated and had to be carried up to your room. Is that true or false?
Anonymous smears.
Hegseth himself has appeared on podcasts, vulnerably admitting to troubles with alcohol after his tour in Iraq in 2006. According to Senator Eric Schmidt, Pete Hegseth promised him and several other Republican senators he would refrain from alcohol consumption entirely if confirmed as U.S. Secretary of Defense. He said the same on Megyn Kelly.
You are not allowed to drink while you're on deployment, right? So if you're in Iraq and Afghanistan in a combat zone, you're not allowed to drink. That's how I view this role as Secretary of Defense, is that I'm not going to have a drink at all. And it's not hard for me because it's not a problem for me. But I need to make sure the senators and the troops and President Trump and everybody else knows when you call me 24/7, you're getting fully dialed in, Pete, just like you always did in Iraq and Afghanistan.
And he promised the same to Senator Hirono.
You recently promised some of my Republican colleagues that you stopped drinking and won't drink if confirmed, correct?
Absolutely.
Then later in the hearing, Senator Markwayne Mullin gave a mic drop moment when he called the Democrats out for their hypocrisy with alcohol and affairs.
How many senators have showed up drunk to vote at night? Have any of you guys asked them to step down and resign from their job? And don't tell me you haven't seen it, because I know you have. And then how many senators do you know have got a divorce before cheating on their wives? Did you ask them to step down? No.
So these senators are getting their kicks, slamming this guy, exposing him in front of the nation on live TV. But Markwayne Mullin had an interesting point, which is that he's observed a long-standing trend in Washington, in the swamp, of very similar personal scandals. Our National Review's Rich Lowry said Hegseth's performance was an effective defense, saying he adopted the rule of sitting for a deposition to his questioning from Democrats, not accepting the premise of simple yes-no questions, saying as little as possible or nothing if he could, and never ever taking the bait. Hegseth would undoubtedly be an improvement to the Pentagon if confirmed as the next Secretary of Defense. He'll rid the military and the academies of DEI and woke ideology and refocus them on merit and lethality. Pretty much the only thing that matters in war and national defense. Our current Secretary, Lloyd Austin, remember, disappeared from work for several days in early 2024 to undergo a medical procedure, and Hegseth said he'll never go AWOL on the American people like that.
I know in any one of my jobs, if I had decided to go AWOL for even a day or two in uniform or around that, that would have been a concern.
And Hegseth agrees with the vast majority of veterans, not to mention American citizens, that the botched withdrawal from Afghanistan forever tainted the reputation of our military.
They still tout it as the most successful airlift in American history, when what the rest of us all saw was true laid before our eyes. Utter failure, a destruction of a military legacy there, abandonment of our allies, death of American troops, detriment to our reputation, and then no answers and no accountability on the other side. And then what was unleashed because of what happened in Afghanistan.
He also knows what the average soldier deals with day to day on the battlefield. He hopes to represent our actual troops, the boots on the ground and enlisted men, as someone who himself served, rather than the defense bureaucracy and contractors.
How many rounds of 5.56 can you fit into the magazine of an M4 rifle?
Depends on the magazine, but standard issue is 30.
Hegseth's #1 goal is to restore military excellence and to raise national esteem for the American veteran and remove all these toxic progressive programs that are ruining our military.
First and foremost, up front, you have to tear out DEI and CRT initiatives, root and branch out of institutions.
100%.
And then you have to put in Army, Navy, and Air Force secretaries and others, civilian positions at the helm, who are committed to the same priorities that the President of the United States is, and if confirmed, the Secretary of Defense will be. Send a clear message that this is not a time for equity. Equity is a very different word than equality. Equality is the bedrock of our military. Men and women, duty positions in uniform, black, white, doesn't matter. We treat you equally based on who you are in the image of God as an individual. And we all get the same bad haircuts.
While Trump is set to restore America's tough and competent leadership, Americans on the West Coast are still dealing with horrible mismanagement. Check out our latest video on the horrific California wildfires here.